and welcome to Flory Models Kit Review Time. Today we've got something really different. I don't think I've ever reviewed something like this before. I definitely don't ever reviewed a train, let alone a flat car. So anyway, what have we got down in here? We have something new, is in a manufacturer as well. T-model, T-num model TK3501. It is a railroad flat car. It's the German 80-ton. type. You don't get the tank, as you probably know anyway. But anyway, length for this one is 37 centimeters by 9 centimeters by a height of 72 centimeters on this one. Okay, so it's basically one of these kits which is pretty much an add-on you could do a diorama with, but you know, it's very easy to overlook this as being a model in its own right. It's usually one of those things that's somewhat an afterthought, so it's nice to see we've got a kit like this, incredibly well detailed. And when we say detailed, we actually really mean it, because down here on the side you can see some of the details of it. We've got photo etch set some of the areas onto this one. And then looking around on the box, there is obviously different versions of this one coming out, as you can see down in here. There's a little picture of actually what you've got down in here. We've even got decals that go along with it. But the big thing is we've got some nice CAD work showing it off down in here. So to say this is a mini model is no exaggeration whatsoever, especially when you're looking at some of these other bits down on here, the actual details and things like that. So very nice indeed. As always with all the reviews, I haven't seen into this, and to be honest, I've been itching to get in here to have a look to see what it's like. So in the box, as you can see, pretty stuffed box. You can see we've got lots of duplicates, as you might imagine, on this one. We've got a floor section like this. We've got the photo etch, which is actually very thin, and we've got the decals, and of course we've got a little booklet just like that. So if we just stick that up on his edge, there we go. So if we start with the instructions first, obviously a little bit about the actual wagon itself, and then straight into it. So as you can see, we've got the various parts down in here like that, and then straight in. So obviously modularly we've got the two sort of double bogey system on this one, so we assume it's going to be do it twice. But right the way through, as you can see, it looks like it's probably going to be a rolling part as well, the way it looks like, not mentioning glue or anything into that one. But you can see pretty standard sort of railroad type fit onto this one. Down onto the other side, we've got that photo etch system going into it to start working the strengthening for the underside right the way through. So again, definitely not one of these where it just shows it on the top. We've got it on the undersides as well. Okay, more strengthening plates going down in there, and then the actual main structure going through there on the chassis. The bed being fitted down onto the top, got the bogies going on, and then it actually really starts to pick up the pace, because you've got all of this small tiny little details, photo etch as well as injection molded parts going right the way through. We've actually got the buffers going down onto this one, the hosing, the braking system, the couplings and everything else, as you can imagine, down onto this one. And then again, more details being added to the top for the actual bed system, of putting all of those ones in, and then going through all the different side areas, depending obviously on what loadout you're going to be going with, right the way through. Again, nice couple of pieces of track with this one, and that's attention to detail as well, because we've actually got the plates bracketing it all together and the actual curve system. Decals right the way through, very nicely done as well. And then obviously you've got colour call-outs for pretty much, you know, your federal standard and roll codes, as well as ammo, Tamiya, hobby, Vallejo, things like that along the bottom. And there we go. So again, something really nice about this one. So down in here we have the decals and the photo etch. So we were saying the photo etch is really going to add the detail. This has actually got a plastic backing onto this as well, so it's actually very thin stuff. Catch it in the light without blinding you. You can see on that one. The decals as well, quite a lot of carrier film, and actually it's very shiny. You can probably catch that if we get it in the light, if I can get it to reflect. There we go. As you can see, it's quite a lot of carrier film on this one right the way over. Again, so you might want to be careful on that, or definitely going over a gloss coat, because these are very shiny indeed. Okay, so let's just pop them out of the way and have a look at some of the plastic. So again, with this particular kit, I think it would be very easy to just injection mold a lot of the details in one. But it's nice to see that it's actually a proper kit and going right the way through, especially on the underside. So obviously there's quite a lot of duplication going on with the actual kit itself. So this is one of those ones where, as I say, we've got duplicates in the bag, so obviously we just have a look at one. But lovely wood texture, you can probably see that wood texture on this one right the way through. Nicely done with that as well. And then looking down, going through, so we've got the hoses, the coupling, Really very nice. The sprue gates are very, very small. Okay, very nicely done. No real sign of flash or sink marks actually on the parts. A few little sink marks up here, catch it in the light, you can see there, but that's not what we're looking at. And then down in here on the blind side, we've got a few ejector pins, but they are seen to be tucked out of the way very nicely indeed. But just generally looking at the way the hoses and these actually sprue gates onto the smaller parts look very, very nice indeed. So that's it. So that's a match pair with that. And then we've got the actual track system we'll look at in a moment. And obviously we've got 4 because it's going to continuation right the way through. So this is sprue B, and we do get 4 of these. So this has got your, obviously it's very much modular the way that this goes in. So looking down on here with the actual chassis of it as well, the sort of I-beam running down through the back of it, and then obviously on there, very nice detail on both sides, no ejector pin marks either on the actual beam itself. And then on these parts down in here with the actual relief springs for the suspension onto the bogies, things like that, very, very nicely done. And then up here on all these smaller details, you can probably see catching them in the light, no problem with that at all. It's a really very nice, clean, crisp moulding right the way down to these smaller parts down in here, right the way through all of them, very nicely done. And even on the blind side, you got ejector pins here and there where they're out of the way, but none on the smaller parts, which is a very nice touch indeed. The wheels themselves look really very good for steel wheels, as you can imagine. It's what I would call a very clean, crisp mould. One way to look at that is these little circles just down in here. If we sort of line them up with something, as you can see, they're very clean, very precise, very sharp. All of the details on this are quite crisp, quite sharp to touch as well, which is absolutely what we're after. The track, again, you do get a little bit of track. It's straight. You do other versions of this where you get it. Another clever little thing is this locking system. So it holds the sprue together to stop it running around, which is really nice because obviously in here we've got a 3-pack of these, and once they're locked in like this, the sprues are fixed. They can't rub against each other, destroy detail or anything else like that. So you see they just pop apart. And we've got the track system, and again when you're looking at it up close you can probably tell the actual securing points down in here, they are very, very nicely done. The beams have got very nice wood texture onto those ones. Unfortunately it doesn't carry down onto the sides, it's just the top half. And then the track as well with the actual bolting system for bolting the track together, that's actually very, very nice indeed. What's not to love about that? It's one of those ones where you're building technically something else. You know, normally you've got your diorama, it's going to take up a lot of work, but it's things like this which are really going to elevate it to the next level and give it presence. So, you know, you might have a tank already ready to go with it, but you can do a little bit more weathering to it, add it to something like this, a small little diorette, or as a full diorama as well. This is going to basically be very, very impressive. It is a model completely, it's in its own right. I love the detail. We've got no real sink marks on anything at all, apart from a couple of parts we're not worried about. Okay, so that's very nice to see. But actually, the thing that strikes me is the sprue gates. They're very fine, very precise, so cleanup will be an absolute doddle. So there we go, that T Models 1/35 scale German 80-ton flat car.